So have you ever heard a teacher say, practice this at all dynamic levels? That assignment has always kind of bothered me because it never addresses how to practice dynamics. This video will try to take some of the guesswork out of practicing dynamics on the drum set. I've always loved the dynamics section of Joe Morello's Master Studies book, page 52, because it's often an aspect of practicing the drums that we neglect. Today I want to share some exercises that I use to develop a better dynamic range on the drum set. It's all too common to practice the things we practice on the drums at mezzo forte or forte. Then, when we get into a musical situation that demands we play something much louder or much softer, our time, feel, and sound can tend to suffer because we haven't really prepared our hands or our ears for that situation. Important note, it's just as easy to play with a lot of tension at low volumes as it is at higher volumes. I've personally struggled with this playing cocktail music at a wedding, a jazz gig at a restaurant, or at a rehearsal studio in New York City. Our pianissimo dynamic level can elicit a lot of tension if we haven't learned how to bounce the sticks at a lower dynamic level. Now, I'm no scientist, but I think the culprit for this is often that our ears are not connecting with our hands. We're expecting to hear something much softer than we're able to produce, so then we tense up and try to grip the sticks a little tighter to control that volume because we're getting too much rebound sometimes and we don't know what to do with it. Thus we try to control the sticks and we play with much more tension. I've found two exercises to be the most helpful in developing better dynamic awareness. Wide dynamic crescendos and decrescendos, so from pianissimo to fortissimo and back down, vice versa. Practicing extreme dynamic shifts from pianissimo to fortissimo and vice versa. For the crescendo decrescendo exercise, I'll play part 1 of my 15 sounds exercise as a template, but for each permutation we'll play a 1-bar crescendo and a 1-bar decrescendo, then move on to the next permutation. We're striving for the entire instrument to rise and fall in volume at the same rate. Try to make it sound like a mix engineer is pushing the drum fader up and pulling it back down. Max Roach often referred to the drum set as the multiple percussion instrument. So try to conceive your dynamics the same way, one cohesive instrument. Now feel free to go back through all of the 15 sounds videos, there's 4 videos, and practice them each this way. I can assure you if you practice this way, your awareness of dynamics and your overall limb coordination will greatly improve. Now moving on, for the dynamic extremes exercise, I'm going to play a 2-bar groove similar to something James Gadson might play with Bill Withers. But you can obviously use any groove you like for this. Often a groove like this, you're going to be playing it pretty soft, but depending on the musical situation you find yourself in, you may have to play it a little louder than you're comfortable playing. We'll start by playing 2 measures at pianissimo, then 2 measures at fortissimo. try 4 measure phrases. Next we'll play the crescendo decrescendo exercise, but with this groove. Next, we'll flip the exercise, starting at fortissimo, decrescendoing for 2 measures to pianissimo, and crescendoing for 2 more measures back up to fortissimo. Now let's combine both these exercises. In this version, we'll play a 2-bar crescendo from pianissimo up to fortissimo, then stay at fortissimo for 2 measures, and then rinse and repeat. Now we'll flip the exercise, starting at fortissimo, decrescendo for 2 measures down to pianissimo, and stay at pianissimo for 2 measures. Another note, dynamic range is just as much about the relative volume you're playing in comparison to the volume you just played so from pianissimo to fortissimo, that relative distance as it is the reproduction of a specific decibel level every time you're supposed to be playing pianissimo. Different people are going to interpret dynamic ranges differently. Your pianissimo may be softer than mine, your fortissimo may be louder than mine, but that's because we're all human. It's always fascinated me how quiet mezzo forte can feel after playing a really loud fortissimo chorus section, for instance, just because of the relative drop in volume. Keep this relativity concept in mind as you work through a lot of this stuff. Also, feel free to extend or truncate any of these exercises. Play 8-bar phrases, 16-bar phrases, 32-bar phrases, whatever you feel like helps you the most. The key is to focus on the consistency of your sound while you're going up and down these crescendos and when you're switching from pianissimo to fortissimo. For instance, at low volumes, it can be really difficult to achieve that perfect rimshot sound because you don't have as much distance to cover. Try to get a good sounding rimshot regardless of volume. At higher volumes, it can be difficult to sustain those hi-hat 16th notes. Be careful that you're not sloppily overplaying on the hi-hat just because we're playing loud. Still, try to let the sticks bounce, breathe, relax. Don't get in your own way. Quick aside, I remember doing a studio session at one point where the engineer told me to, conversely to everything I'd ever heard in my entire life, play as loud as I possibly could. And I did not have a lot of dynamic range in my toolkit at that time. So it was a struggle to get the drums to sound good, to get my body to feel good while I was playing, and literally be hitting as hard as I possibly could. This is why I recommend using these concepts in a way that makes sense for your personal situation. Do you struggle playing quietly coming out of a very loud section of music? Or, although less likely, have you ever been asked to play the drums a little harder and you didn't have much volume left in the tank to get you there? These kinds of exercises will hopefully reveal what gives you the most trouble. In this final example, I'll improvise in a call and response fashion, but using dynamic shifts as a way to call and respond. Now, obviously, there are endless variations to this kind of an exercise, and I'm going to be posting more that I use fairly regularly, but I encourage you to make up your own versions of this exercise that help you personally with what you struggle with the most. These are just some building blocks to get you started. Adding dynamics to exercises you already work on or grooves that you already know will greatly improve your command of the instrument. As always, if you got something out of this, please like, share, comment, subscribe. It all helps me grow this channel. And thanks so much for watching. See you next time.